The desert stretched endlessly, golden dunes rising and falling like frozen waves under the heat of two suns. The air shimmered, making the horizon dance and blur. Every step sank into the hot sand, pulling at Aaron's tired legs. His water pouch was nearly empty, and his throat burned with dryness. Yet he kept moving, for stopping meant surrendering to the silence and heat that swallowed everything. Aaron was a traveler, not by choice but by fate. His ship had broken down during a storm in the sky, forcing him to land in this strange world. He had thought deserts on Earth were harsh, but this alien desert was alive with secrets he could not understand. The twin suns gave no mercy, and the wind carried whispers that almost sounded like voices. He walked for hours until his legs nearly gave way. Then, through the waves of heat, something appeared, something that did not belong to the sand and sky. At first, Aaron thought it was a mirage, a trick of thirst and exhaustion. But as he drew closer, he saw it clearly. It was a tent, glowing softly in the sunlight, its fabric shining like woven gold. The top of the tent curved like the crest of a dune, and it stood tall, unmoved by the desert winds. Aaron stopped, blinking hard. His heart raced. Who could live here? And why would they build such a tent in the middle of nowhere? His steps quickened despite his tired body. The tent seemed almost to call him, promising shade, rest, maybe even water. When he reached the edge of the tent, he paused. The fabric shifted slightly, like rippling light. He raised his hand and touched it. To his surprise, it was cool, not burning hot like the sand. He pulled the curtain gently, and the sound of soft chimes greeted him. Inside, the air was cooler, filled with the faint smell of herbs. The light was golden, glowing from the walls themselves. Cushions were spread across the floor, and in the center stood a silver bowl filled with clear water. But what caught Aaron's breath was not the beauty of the tent, it was the figure inside. A woman stood near the bowl. Her skin had a soft bronze glow, as if kissed by the desert sun, and her eyes shimmered like amber crystals. Her hair, dark and long, flowed like midnight silk. She wore simple desert robes, but the way she held herself was full of quiet strength. The woman turned, and her gaze met Aaron's. For a moment, silence filled the tent, heavy yet strangely calm. "You are far from your kind," she said softly, her voice carrying the rhythm of the wind outside. Aaron swallowed, unsure if his mind was playing tricks on him. I didn't mean to intrude," he said, his voice rough from thirst. "I just needed shade." The woman studied him, her expression unreadable. Then, with graceful steps, she moved to the silver bowl and lifted a small cup carved from stone. She filled it with water and offered it to him. "Drink," she said. Aaron hesitated only a second before taking the cup. The water was cool, sweeter than anything he had ever tasted. It slid down his dry throat, giving him new life. He closed his eyes, savoring the relief. When he opened them again, the woman was still watching him, her eyes calm yet curious. "Thank you," he said quietly, lowering the cup. She tilted her head. "The desert does not forgive the careless. You should not be here alone." Aaron managed a weak smile. "I didn't choose this. My ship, it failed. I'm just trying to survive." Something softened in her gaze, a flicker of understanding. She gestured for him to sit on one of the cushions. "Then rest. The suns are cruel today." Aaron lowered himself gratefully, feeling the coolness of the tent wrap around him. He looked at her again, wondering who she was. She did not seem like an ordinary desert dweller. Her presence was steady, almost radiant, like the tent itself. "My name is Aaron," he said, hoping to bridge the silence. The woman paused, then spoke with calm grace. "I am Nira." The sound of her name lingered in the air, soft yet strong. Aaron repeated it silently in his mind. Nira. As he sat there, watching the golden walls glow and listening to the faint hum of the desert wind outside, he realized something. This tent was not just a shelter. It was something far more mysterious, and the woman inside it was no ordinary stranger. For the first time since landing on this harsh world, Aaron felt not only safe but strangely drawn to the unknown path before him. And it had begun here, in the golden desert tent. The golden tent glowed softly as the suns began to set. Outside, the desert slowly turned from blazing heat to cool twilight. Shadows stretched long across the dunes, and the wind whispered gently, carrying with it the cool breath of night. Inside, the air was calm, filled with a faint scent of herbs burning in a small clay pot. Aaron sat cross-legged on a cushion, feeling strength slowly return to his body. Nira moved with quiet grace, setting a small fire in the center of the tent. She used stones that glowed faintly when rubbed together, and soon a gentle flame flickered to life, casting warm light over the golden walls. Aaron watched her work with fascination. Everything about her seemed different yet natural, as if she belonged to the desert in ways he could never understand. When she finally sat across from him, her ember eyes reflected the flame like jewels. For a while, silence stretched between them. The crackle of the fire and the soft hum of the wind outside filled the space. Then Nira spoke, her voice calm but carrying weight. "You are not the first traveler the desert has swallowed," she said. "But you may be the first to walk into my tent alive." Aaron raised his brows, half smiling despite the seriousness of her words. "That sounds like I should be lucky." "You are," Nira replied simply. "This land is not kind to strangers. The sands test everyone. Many are lost before they find shelter." Aaron leaned back slightly, staring into the small fire. "On Earth, there are deserts too," he said, his voice soft, as though recalling distant memories. "But they are different. Our skies have only one sun, and at night the stars shine so bright. There are rivers, forests, and oceans, endless water stretching farther than the eye can see." Nira tilted her head, her eyes thoughtful. "Oceans," she repeated. "I have heard of them in old tales, but I cannot imagine water without end. Here, a single hidden spring is more precious than gold." Her words carried a weight of longing, and Aaron felt it. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "On Earth, water is life too, but we sometimes forget its value. Maybe we take it for granted." The firelight flickered, and Nira's gaze softened. "Tell me more of your home," she said. Aaron's lips curved into a gentle smile. He began to speak of the forests, tall and green, with leaves that rustled in the wind like music. He told her of snowy mountains that glittered like silver, and of rain falling from the sky, fresh and cool. His voice grew more alive as he described rivers where children played, and fields that stretched wide, full of color and harvest. Nira listened quietly, her eyes never leaving his face. In the glow of the fire, she looked like she was drinking in every word. When he paused, she said softly, "Your world sounds alive, filled with endless wonders. Here, the desert teaches us to survive, but it gives little joy." Aaron nodded, sensing the weight of her life. "And yet, you've survived here. That takes strength." A faint smile touched Nira's lips, the first he had seen since entering the tent. "Strength," Yes. But also wisdom. The desert is not an enemy. It is a teacher. It shows us patience, silence, and the value of small things. A drop of water. A single tree. A safe night. Aaron thought about her words, and in that moment, he realized how different their worlds were, yet how similar their struggles felt. Both Earth and this desert carried lessons, though in very different ways. The fire crackled softly, and the golden light wrapped them in warmth. Slowly, the air between them changed. The silence was no longer heavy, it was gentle, almost comforting. "Why did you help me?" Aaron asked at last. "You didn't have to." Nero looked at him steadily. "Because even the desert, harsh as it is, allows small acts of kindness. And because you looked at this tent not with greed, but with hope. That is rare." Her words touched him deeper than he expected. He lowered his gaze, feeling both humbled and grateful. "Then I owe you my life," he said quietly. Nira shook her head. "You owe the desert. I am only its daughter." The words lingered in the tent, carried by the firelight and the hush of the wind outside. Hours passed as they continued speaking. Aaron told her more stories of Earth, of music, of laughter around fires much like this one, of people who dreamed of reaching the stars. Nira, in return, shared her own tales of hidden springs beneath the dunes, of tribes who moved like shadows across the sands, of a legend about a golden tent that appeared only to those who carried hope in their hearts. As the night deepened, Aaron felt a bond growing between them. It was fragile, like a flame in the wind, yet steady enough to warm the cold silence of the desert. When sleep finally tugged at his eyes, Nira spread a blanket for him near the fire. "Rest," she said softly. "The desert is calm tonight, but tomorrow it may test you again." Aaron lay down, the firelight flickering against the golden walls. His last thought before sleep claimed him was of Nira's voice, gentle yet strong, and of the stories they had shared. For the first time since his ship had fallen from the sky, Aaron did not feel alone. The first light of dawn slipped through the golden tent, turning its walls into soft sheets of fire and honey. Aaron woke slowly, feeling warmth on his face and the faint smell of herbs still in the air. For a moment, he thought he was back on Earth, waking to the glow of sunrise through a window. But when he sat up and saw the desert stretching endlessly outside the tent's curtain, he remembered where he was. Nero was already awake. She sat cross-legged near the silver bowl of water, her posture calm and her eyes closed. She seemed to be listening to the desert itself, as if the whispers of the dunes spoke to her in a secret language. Aaron watched quietly, not wanting to disturb her. There was something about her stillness that felt sacred, like the silence of a mountain before a storm. At last, Nira opened her eyes. They glowed faintly with the reflection of the rising suns. She noticed Aaron watching her and gave a small nod. "You slept well," she said softly. Aaron rubbed his eyes and managed a smile. "Better than I thought I would. Your tent, it feels alive. It's different from anything I've ever known." Nira's lips curved slightly, though it wasn't quite a smile. "The golden fabric was woven long ago by my people. It carries the desert's blessing. It keeps out the harshness and invites peace." Aaron looked around, then leaned forward. "It feels more than peace. It feels safe. And that's not easy to find in a place like this." Nira studied him for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "Safety is a rare gift. Even here, within these walls, it does not last forever." Her words carried a warning, but her tone was gentle. Aaron understood she was reminding him that the desert could not be escaped, only endured. Still, her presence and the golden tent gave him a strength he hadn't felt since landing on this world. As the morning grew brighter, Nira offered him a small piece of flat bread baked with desert herbs. It was simple but filling. Aaron ate slowly, grateful for the taste of something other than dry rations. While they ate, Nira asked him about Earth again. "You spoke of oceans last night. Tell me, what does it feel like, to stand at the edge of endless water?" Aaron's eyes lit up with the memory. "It feels freeing. The sound of waves is like music, soft but powerful. The air is full of salt, and the wind is cool against your face. Sometimes, when you look out at the sea, you can't tell where the water ends and the sky begins. It makes you feel small, but in a good way, like you're part of something greater." Nero listened closely, her ember eyes steady. She seemed almost to imagine herself standing there. After a moment, she said, "The desert has no such endless water. But when I walk the dunes at night, and the stars cover the sky, I feel that same smallness. Perhaps the sea and the desert are not so different." Her words struck something inside Aaron. He had never thought of comparing them, but she was right. Both places were vast, both could be cruel, and both held beauty that could not be tamed. A quiet silence fell between them, but this time it was not heavy. It was warm, like the pause between two notes in a song. Aaron looked at her, and for the first time, he noticed the way the firelight from last night had softened her features in his memory. Now, in the morning sun, her eyes carried both strength and gentleness, and her presence felt less like a stranger's and more like a companion's. He wanted to say something, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he asked, "Do you ever feel lonely here?" Nira's gaze dropped to the silver bowl of water, and her voice grew quieter. "The desert teaches us to walk alone. But yes, sometimes the silence is too deep. Sometimes the stars are too far away." Her honesty surprised him. She had seemed so strong, so unshaken by the desert's cruelty. Hearing her admit loneliness made her feel more real, more human, despite being from a world so different than his. Aaron leaned forward slightly, his voice gentle. "I know that feeling. Even on Earth, surrounded by people, there were times I felt alone. Maybe it's not the place that makes us lonely, maybe it's the lack of someone who understands." Nero looked at him again, her ember eyes searching his face as though measuring his words. For the first time, she gave a true smile, small, but bright enough to light the tent. In that smile, something shifted. It was like a spark catching flame, quiet but undeniable. The suns climbed higher, and the golden tent shimmered as if reflecting their growing bond. Aaron felt it deep inside, the start of something new, something he had not expected when he crashed onto this world. And Nira, though cautious, felt it too. Neither spoke it aloud, but both understood, a connection had begun, fragile yet strong, like the first flower blooming in endless sand. The suns climbed high again, and the desert glowed like molten gold. Aaron stood at the edge of the golden tent, looking out at the endless dunes. The sand shimmered, moving like a sea under the heat. He knew he could not stay in the tent forever. His ship lay broken far behind him, and he needed to find a way out of this wasteland. Nira joined him, her robes flowing softly as the desert wind brushed past. She carried a small leather pack filled with herbs, a flask of water, and pieces of dried bread. Her eyes, calm as always, studied the horizon. "The desert does not allow one to linger," she said quietly. "If you wish to live, you must move with it." Aaron looked at her, uncertain. I wouldn't make it alone. You know this land, will you guide me? For a moment, she was silent, as though weighing his request. Then she nodded slowly. I will walk with you. But understand this, the desert is not your friend. It will test you in ways you cannot imagine. Aaron smiled faintly, his voice steady despite his nerves. Then I'm glad I won't be facing it alone. So they set out together. The dunes stretched high and wide, their golden slopes shifting underfoot. Nero walked ahead with sure steps, leaving light prints on the sand. Aaron followed, his boots sinking deeper, but he pushed on. Whenever the wind grew harsh, Nero would stop, lift her veil, and study the sky. She seemed to know when a storm was coming before any sign appeared. By midday, the suns blazed mercilessly, and the desert's silence pressed heavily on them. Aaron's throat grew dry, his body weary, but Neera's presence gave him strength. When they paused for rest under a sharp cliff of rock, she shared water with him carefully, never too much, always just enough. As they sat in the shade, Aaron glanced at her. You move like you've walked this desert 1,000 times. Neera's lips curved in a faint smile. Perhaps I have. Every child of this land learns the desert's language. The shift of sand, the song of the wind, the marks of hidden creatures. To survive, one must listen. Aaron chuckled softly. I can barely hear my own footsteps. But I'll try to listen, too. The journey continued. By evening, the sky turned deep red, and shadows stretched long. As they walked, Aaron's foot slipped on a slope, and he tumbled down the side of a dune. Sand poured around him, threatening to bury his legs. Panic rushed through him as the ground shifted like liquid beneath his weight. Aaron. Neera's voice cut through the roar of sand. In a swift movement, she slid down beside him, her hands strong as she pulled him up. With her help, he found solid ground again, gasping for air. He looked at her, still breathless. You saved me. Her ember eyes met his steadily. The desert takes quickly. You must respect it. Aaron nodded, his chest still heaving. I'll remember. Thank you, Neera. They camped that night beneath the open stars, too far from the golden tent to return. Neera built a small fire from dry desert shrubs, and its glow painted her face with gentle light. Aaron lay on his back, staring at the stars that filled the sky. They seemed countless, brighter than any night he had seen on earth. Neera sat quietly beside the fire, watching the flames. After a while, Aaron turned to her. You were right, he said softly. The desert and the sea aren't so different. Lying here, it feels endless, like the ocean. But, with you here, it doesn't feel so empty. Neera's gaze shifted to him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. A silence stretched between them, but it was warm, not cold. Finally, she said, perhaps the desert gave you to me for a reason. The words caught him by surprise, but they filled him with a quiet joy. Later that night, the wind picked up suddenly, carrying sharp grains of sand. A storm approached, fierce and fast. Neera rose quickly, pulling Aaron close to the shelter of a rocky outcrop. She wrapped her golden scarf around them both, shielding his face from the storm. Together, they leaned against the rock, waiting as the desert howled. Aaron felt the strength of her grip, steady and unshaken. Despite the fury of the storm, he felt safe. In that moment, as the sand swept across the land like waves crashing on a shore, he realized something. He was no longer just surviving. He was learning to trust, to share his steps with another soul. When the storm finally passed, the desert was quiet again, the stars shining brighter than before. Nira unwrapped the scarf and looked at him, her face calm though her hair was dusted with sand. Aaron smiled tiredly. I think the desert approves of us walking together. For the first time, Nira let out a soft laugh, gentle but real. Perhaps it does. And so, side by side, they continued their journey, each step carrying not only the weight of survival but also the quiet spark of something deeper, something that felt like the beginning of belonging. The desert night was colder than Aaron expected. After the storm, the sands had fallen into silence, and the stars filled the sky like scattered jewels. The fire Nira had built flickered gently, its orange glow pushing back the shadows. Aaron sat close to it, pulling his blanket tighter, while Nira sat across from him, her face calm, lit by both firelight and starlight. They had walked all day, their bodies tired, yet their spirits strangely light. For though the desert tested them with storms and shifting dunes, it also gave them something rare, a bond that neither could deny. Aaron leaned back, gazing at the endless sky. Back on Earth, he said softly, I used to lie on the grass at night and watch the stars. But even then, I never saw them shine like this. Nira followed his gaze. The desert sky is clear. It shows every light. Some say the stars are the spirits of those who walked before us. Others say they are fires from distant lands. I do not know which is true, but they remind us we are never alone. Her words were gentle, and they settled into Aaron's heart. He turned his eyes back to her, noticing how the firelight painted her ember eyes with warmth. There was strength in her gaze, but also something softer, something he hadn't seen the first night in the golden tent. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the crackle of the fire and the whisper of the night wind. Finally, Aaron spoke again. Do you ever dream of leaving this desert? Nira's expression shifted. She looked into the fire, her voice quiet. When I was younger, I dreamed of finding green lands and rivers that never dried. But dreams do not always belong to us. My people live here, and I am part of them. To leave would mean leaving everything I know. Aaron nodded slowly. I understand. Still, if you ever did leave, I think the world beyond would be lucky to have you. Her eyes lifted to him, and for the first time, her gaze held something unspoken. It was not surprise, nor rejection, but a warmth that lingered between them. Later, as the fire dimmed, Nira brought out a small golden lamp from her pack. She lit it, and its glow spread softly over the sand, blending with the starlight above. This lamp, she explained, is used by my people during times of promise. When we sit by its light, we speak of hopes, not fears. Aaron studied the lamp's gentle flame. Then let's speak of hopes, he said. Nira tilted her head. What do you hope for, traveler from the stars? Aaron thought for a long moment. I hope, for a place where I belong. For a life that feels more than just surviving. I've wandered so long that sometimes I forget what it feels like to be at peace. He looked at her steadily. Tonight, for the first time, I feel close to that peace. The words hung in the air. Nira's lips parted slightly, her breath catching in a way Aaron almost didn't notice. Then she lowered her gaze, speaking softly. I have always hoped to meet someone who looked at the desert not with fear, but with respect. Someone who could see its beauty as I do. Perhaps my hope has also found its answer. The spark between them grew stronger. It was quiet, without sudden gestures or words, but it was real. The night deepened, and the desert stretched quiet around them. Nira reached into her pack again and pulled out a small stringed instrument, its body made from carved bone and stretched hide. She began to play a slow tune, soft and flowing like the wind across the dunes. The music was haunting but beautiful, filling the night with a song that seemed older than the stars. Aaron listened, his heart stirred. When the melody ended, he whispered, "It's beautiful." Nira met his gaze, her eyes glowing in the golden lamp's light. "It is the song of wandering hearts. Perhaps now, it belongs to both of us." Aaron's chest tightened, not from fear, but from something deeper, something he had not felt in a long time. He gave a quiet smile. "Then I'll carry it with me, wherever I go." The fire slowly faded to embers, and the golden lamp glowed steadily, casting their shadows long against the sand. Side by side, they sat beneath the endless stars, two souls drawn together by chance, bound now by hope. For in the golden night, under the vast desert sky, Aaron and Nira discovered that even in a place of silence and hardship, warmth could be found not just from the fire, but from the closeness of hearts beginning to understand one another. The desert morning was calm, though the suns rose sharply over the dunes, casting long shadows behind every ripple of sand. Aaron and Nira had traveled together for days now, their steps leaving twin trails across the golden landscape. Though the journey was exhausting, it had brought them closer than either expected. The desert had tested their strength, but it had also shown them trust, understanding, and a quiet connection that neither wanted to ignore. As they walked toward the edge of the desert, a distant plateau appeared, where the dunes finally gave way to rocky cliffs and hidden oases. Aaron's heart leaped at the thought of leaving the harsh sands behind, yet an unease settled deep in his chest. He realized that leaving this desert also meant leaving Nira. She noticed his pause. "You hesitate," she said softly, her ember eyes following his gaze toward the horizon. Aaron turned to her, unsure how to put his feelings into words. I can't stop thinking about staying. Not just because of the desert, but because of you. I've traveled far and seen many things, but I've never felt anything like this." Nira's gaze softened. She had known this moment would come, the moment when the choice between duty and heart would arrive. "Aaron," she said carefully, "my people rarely allow close ties with outsiders. To stay here, it may not be simple. You could be asked to leave. Or worse, you could bring danger to yourself." Aaron stepped closer, his voice firm yet gentle. "I know. And I am willing to face whatever comes. I cannot imagine continuing without you. This desert, your home, it has become more than a place to survive. It feels like where I belong." Nira looked away for a moment, scanning the horizon, feeling the weight of her people's rules and her own heart. The desert had taught her patience, and now it demanded her courage. "Aaron, this choice, it is not just yours. I must decide too. My life has always been within these sands. To leave it or to bind my heart to someone who may not belong here is not easy." Aaron reached for her hand. The warmth of her skin in his grip brought a quiet strength. "Then let's decide together," he said. "Whatever comes, we face it side by side." Her eyes met his again, and in them, he saw a mixture of fear, hope, and something tender that made his chest tighten. She took a deep breath, letting the wind carry her worries away, and nodded. "I cannot promise it will be easy. But, if we choose this path, we will walk it together. The desert will test us, but it will also guide us." A gentle wind stirred the sand around their feet, as if the desert itself acknowledged their decision. They walked on, the dunes stretching wide before them, each step a quiet declaration of courage and trust. The journey no longer felt lonely or perilous, it was shared. By evening, they reached a small hidden oasis, a pool of clear water surrounded by palms and stones. The desert suns had softened, and the sky turned a deep violet, sprinkled with countless stars. Aaron knelt by the water, dipping his hands into the cool liquid, while Nira sat nearby, watching him with a quiet smile. "You chose to stay," she said softly, almost to herself. Aaron looked up at her, his smile gentle but full of certainty. "Yes. I choose this us. I would rather face the desert with you than any world alone." Nira's eyes shimmered in the starlight. "Then I choose as well. My heart has found its companion, and even if the path is hard, it is worth walking. The desert will no longer feel empty." The two sat by the oasis in silence, letting the quiet of the night settle over them. The stars reflected in the water, and for a moment, it seemed as if the heavens themselves had opened to witness their choice. Neither spoke, yet both understood that something deep and lasting had begun. Aaron reached for Nira's hand again, holding it with care. She responded, intertwining her fingers with his. Their grip was more than comfort, it was a promise. A promise that no matter what trials the desert sent their way, they would face them together, their hearts united. Night deepened around them, and the oasis glimmered in the moonlight. The desert no longer seemed vast and lonely. Instead, it felt alive, welcoming, a place where two souls had found each other. Aaron and Nero leaned closer, sharing a quiet smile, and in that golden moment, they realized that love could bloom even in the harshest of places. The choice was made. Hearts were aligned. And beneath the endless stars of the desert sky, a new chapter of their lives began, one filled with hope, trust, and the promise of shared journeys. The sun rose slowly over the desert, painting the dunes with soft hues of gold and rose. Aaron and Nero walked side by side toward the golden tent, their steps lighter than before. The choice had been made. Their hearts were aligned, and each step toward the tent felt like a return not only to shelter but to a place that now held more than just walls of fabric. It held their bond, their promise, and the beginning of a shared life. When they arrived, the tent glowed in the morning light, its golden walls shimmering like liquid sunshine. Aaron paused at the entrance, taking a deep breath. This place had been the start of their meeting, the cradle of stories and connection, and now it would witness the start of something deeper. Nira entered first, spreading her hands across the glowing fabric as if to greet it. "Home," she whispered, her voice soft but full of meaning. Aaron followed, stepping inside and feeling a warmth that went beyond the cool shade. The tent seemed alive, almost welcoming them back with a gentle hum of energy. They sat on the cushions together, close enough that their shoulders brushed, yet not so close as to speak before they were ready. Silence filled the tent, but it was not uncomfortable. It was full of understanding, a quiet that only comes when two souls recognize the depth of what they share. Aaron turned to her, his eyes reflecting both the golden glow of the tent and the light of his own heart. "We've come a long way," he said softly. "Through storms, endless dunes, and nights under the stars. And yet, being here with you feels like the journey was meant to lead to this moment." Nira's amber eyes met his, calm but shining. "The desert teaches patience, courage, and hope," she said. "And sometimes, it teaches that the most important journeys are not about where you walk, but who walks with you." Aaron smiled. "Then I am grateful the desert brought me to you." They talked for hours, sharing dreams and hopes for the future. Nira spoke of hidden springs and secret paths of the desert, places she had never shared with anyone before. Aaron shared ideas of distant lands and stars beyond the sky, and how one day, maybe, they could explore them together. Each story, each plan, built a bridge between their worlds, a connection stronger than any sandstorm or distance could break. As the suns began to set, the golden walls of the tent glowed warmer, reflecting the beauty of the moment. Nira placed her hand gently on Aaron's, and he took it, holding it with care. "This tent," she said softly, "was the start of everything. And now, it will be the place where we continue together." Aaron nodded, feeling a quiet joy he had never known. "I've never believed in fate," he admitted. "But this, meeting you, walking beside you, it feels like it was always meant to be." A small smile touched Nira's lips. "Then let us make the desert a witness to what is ours. Let us promise that, whatever comes, we will face it together." Aaron squeezed her hand. "I promise. With all that I am, I will walk with you." The golden tent seemed to glow brighter, as if agreeing with them. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, but inside, it felt like a safe haven. They were no longer strangers, no longer simply traveler and guide. They were companions, partners in life and heart, ready to face the future side by side. Night came, and the stars filled the sky, brighter than any Aaron had seen. They lay together on the cushions, hands intertwined, listening to the faint whisper of the desert wind. The golden walls of the tent glimmered softly, the firelight reflecting the warmth of their closeness. In that quiet, infinite space, they spoke little, for words were no longer needed. Their hearts had already said everything. Nira rested her head on Aaron's shoulder. "I never thought the desert could feel like this," she murmured. "Safe, warm, full of life." Aaron kissed her forehead gently. "And I never thought I could find a place where I truly belong. But here, with you, I have found it." The night deepened, and the golden tent became a haven of peace, laughter, and quiet whispers. The desert, vast and endless, seemed to honor their union, giving them the calm it rarely allowed travelers. In that moment, human and desert-dwelling souls shared not just shelter, but love, trust, and hope. As the stars twinkled above, the golden tent stood glowing against the dunes, a symbol of connection between two worlds. Aaron and Nero lay together, side by side, knowing that no matter how vast the desert, or how harsh its trials, they would face it together. In the heart of the golden desert tent, love had found its home, and it was eternal.